How's it going, guys? We are here at YCS Philly. Top 32 list with Branded, but there's a twist.
No puppet.
We're here with...
No puppet.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, big buddy.
Figs, of course, with Figs Forum. You guys check me out. I usually play Phantom Knights, but I decided to play Meta, of course, so we're playing Branded. Had a lot of success with it, very fun, no puppets, definitely a very different list, but I think you guys enjoy it. It's very straightforward and it's very strong, so. I got top 32, yeah, just lost the cash in my top 32 matchup, so couldn't make it any further, so. But we'll go ahead and get into it. So we got 3 Labyrinth, 3 Fallen Alabaz, 2 Quem. I know that was one of the biggest things that a lot of people were surprised about in a lot of my matchups. They weren't ready for the second Quem after dealing with the first. Great Recursion just does way too much to not play 2 in my opinion. 2 Cartesia, 1 Albion, 1 Tragedy, 1 Adlib, and 1 Kit. So this is basically the Branded Albaz lineup. I didn't go with Mercurier. I decided to do Kit over Mercurier for the Ridbrum. This is a little better just because it worked with Iron Dash as well. Yeah, that's it for the Fallen Albaz and Despia monsters.
Anything about that you would change?
I think it was fine. I felt like there was a lot of normal summons, but I definitely think it was okay. I bricked a couple times. I'm seeing too many normal summons. I only bricked 3 times throughout the entire event, but I think it was fine, more or less. And then 1 Dark Magician. Had to play it because of cash, of course. You want to have access to Dragoon. We'll get into the hand traps. I did 3 Droll, 2 Ogre, 2 Ash, and then we'll say we do the 3 Amperm. These are the only hand traps that I mainboarded. I wanted to make sure that I had access to as many options to be able to stop my opponent from playing the game, and then basically just try to OTK them the next turn. Kind of how most of my games went.
How was Ogre in the main?
I actually didn't like Ogre that much. I think it would have been a better side card. I think there are better options that I could have probably did, like Effect Veiler or something. I feel like I needed more Monster Effect Negation. Ogre came up very rarely. I set it out a lot, honestly, because obviously it's not that great against cash, but otherwise I think Effect Veiler probably would have been better. 3 Branded Fusion, 3 Branded Opening, 1 Red, 2 Fusion Deployment. That's it for like the Fusion stuff.
Nothing about that would change, right?
Nope, that's all pretty standard. 3 Cross Out, 1 Call By, and then the 1 Retribution. But yeah, 3 Cross Out, 1 Call By, obviously to stop Ash. No Bishu Rebellion, no Lost, no more Carrier.
Did you miss Lost at all?
No, there was never a situation where honestly Lost came up. I think Rebellion, getting Lost was nice, but Rebellion felt bad to draw. Same thing with Swordier, they just weren't good cards to draw. There was always better options, and I think the way I played it for this weekend was honestly just the most optimal.
Seeing how you didn't play Puppet, did you miss Expulsion at all for anything else?
Expulsion would have been nice for being able to recruit Quem for Recursion, but otherwise I think that not having the Expulsion meant that I wasn't drawing a card that relied me to actually play the game, because there were some simplified game states where I would end on just Quem, have resources engraved with like Branded in red, and then I just made an entirely new board during my my opponent's turn. So I think that because I went for Branded in red, it gave me more options to find lines to put monsters on board that Expulsion wouldn't have been able to get to.
Before you get into the extra deck, what was your reasoning for not running Branded Lost?
Branded Lost is nice, but the problem with Branded Lost is that once your opponent's ready to start interrupting you, it protects you after the fact that you've resolved Branded Fusion, but you really just care about resolving Branded Fusion and then getting to the point where you're able to just start setting up your board. Cartesia already plays around all the other cards that you would normally care about, so like Veiler, Imperm, anything that pretty much interacts with your fusion monsters, Cartesia just automatically plays around and deals with. So you really don't need the Lost. Lost is nice for being able to search things, and since I didn't play Mercurier, that was like the only card I ever wanted to see. But I'm already playing 5 copies of Cartesia, so you never wanted to search that. I mean, you've got the 3 of the Fusion Deployment, the 2 Cartesia, and then you can search Quem, but again, 3 Opening, 2 Quem, so you have 5 copies. So I think it was optimal to just not play it. Didn't want to see it because, again, if they asked your Branded Fusion, Lost didn't matter anyway. So I think this is the most optimal. And I didn't miss Bish Shields at all. Bish Shields were like not even missed in the slightest. So the action deck, 2 Mirror Jade, 2 Rebellion, 2 Albion. I went with the 2s, of course, because cash, and you want to have access to this a little bit more in this build, just because of the fact that you are recycling a lot of your resources, and you want to make sure that you have options for fusioning as many times as possible. Sprint, Rimbrum, Titanic Clad. Honestly, the biggest MVP of the entire weekend. Everyone read it a million times. It did everything. It fuses with a 2500, which is great, which works very well against cash, because of course with the field card everything becomes bigger than 25. You're able to use it to summon Quem from the deck, so if you are in a situation where you're going to get nibbed and you have Grand Oil on board, you're able to just banish it, use Mirror Jade, get the effect, get rid of their nib, send this off the Mirror Jade effect, and then just remake your board for the end phase. So you'll have Branded in red with Quem Quem sending Fallen Alabaz, and you just do it all over again during their opponent's turn. But yeah, and he's also a great way to get around Noir. If they don't have the materials they need to make it really big, you just Branded Fusion into this and just swing over it because he becomes like 3,600. So he's big enough to deal with it, and he's unaffected by extra deck monster abilities, the turn he's summoned. So this is a great card, honestly. Very insane. I think if no one's playing it, I mean, it's definitely worth playing it moving forward, in my opinion.
Is there anything in the extra deck that you wish you would have played besides in place of the Titanic Cloud?
I'll probably go over it as I keep going through. I don't think there was anything to replace Titanic. I think he was nuts. But we did the one Quateris, the one Dusk. I did miss having two. I've always played the deck having two, and it was always nice having access to multiple because there are a lot of cards you do want to send from your extra deck and your deck, honestly, for his effect. But I think that that one was okay. I feel like if I had room, I would have definitely played two. One Draco Stapelia, one Guardian Chimera, and then of course I played two Dragoon. It came up a couple times. It didn't come up as often as I wanted it to. It did win me a game. I would probably, honestly, I'd probably cut it moving forward. I mean, obviously Cash is going to be dead. This is only good against Cash. It was cute. I mean, there was one time where I did go into this over Mirror Jade because I had double hand trap and I was getting Cortesia back at end phase. So it was like you have to play through an Omni, Quem, Brandon in red, plus two hand traps. So it's like you're not really playing the game, and it worked out for me. But otherwise, I didn't really like it too much. I feel like it wasn't that great. Obviously, the Dark Magician's fine. It closed out games very well, honestly. But other than that, I probably would cut those and put other stuff in there. We'll do the side deck. So I went with 3DD Crow. This is where I basically cut the Bestials. This was great against everything, honestly. It's great against Super Heavy if I actually played one. It's great against Purely. The only thing it doesn't hit basically is Cash, but it hits everything else. It's really good against Lab. You know, every time they have the big lady on board and they try to activate a normal trap to chain, you just get rid of their Lab trap cards by chaining this. So you're stopping them from getting another card, and you're also stopping the Lab traps from recurring and getting them set on their own board. So this was actually really insane against the Lab matchup. I played against two of them, and this card just overperformed along with Ash. 3 Nib, of course, for the Cash matchup and everything else. This is great against Mathmech. This is also good against Mathmech too. But obviously, we wanted to have the Nib for Rogue and all the other decks. Santa Claus for the Cash matchup. I barely ever draw it. I think I drew it twice against the 5 Cash matchups I had, but obviously you want it. Good against Noir, obviously, if you ever see it. 3 Cosmics, obviously, for Floodgates, and then we have the 3 Deck Heavy. This should have been Eradicator. I cited this in 0 times because I played against no Super Heavy at all. And that was obviously a big thing for me because like this was just kind of dead against everything else. And I expected to see more Super Heavy Samurai, honestly. And it's kind of good against Rogue. Like I thought about setting it against Mathmech, but I was like, I had better value in just keeping the Nib and the DD Crow because if they did hand trap me to death, I wanted to make sure I could rebuttal. But otherwise, this should have been Eradicator. I think it would have been so much more nuts. Eradicator is good against Cash, good against Lab. It's good against Purely. A lot of other decks, again, it's better against. So I think this definitely should have been Eradicator.
And you didn't side that in against Purely because of the normal main deck monsters is what, 6?
Most of the time they're playing in draw. They don't have a lot of small guys. You can hit their hand traps, but it's like they're going to throw those at you anyways since you're going first if you open it. So it's like you really don't care too much. And there's not a great time to really like play this. Most of the time, if they've already got the Purely on board and you try to like pop it, they can always just use the one that protects it from being destroyed by card effect. So it ends up not really doing much for you. But yeah, that should have been Eradicated for sure. But otherwise, the deck was solid. I'll definitely be doing another profile, another video in terms of how I was doing combos and stuff because a lot of people were watching me and were very curious. Again, it's definitely a very different deck. You're not doing your standard lines of just sending out Lubelli in and getting your Branded loss and that. It's very different. But I did like the fact that it was flexible. That's what worked for me the most is that it was very flexible. I mean, in Swiss day 1, I mean, I was 8 wins, 0 losses, 1 draw. I had a phenomenal day 1. Then day 2, my deck kind of gave out on me in the first 3 rounds, but I squeezed in the top cut, so it was great. But yeah, definitely deck performed very well.
Do you have any shout outs or anything you want to do?
Shout out to my team, the people I roll with, Ryan, Jeff, everyone else, everyone at Millennium supporting me, everyone at Upstate, Syracuse, Buffalo, upstate New York. So Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, everyone there to support us. So I appreciate y'all.
And do you plan on dropping another list with your new changes for the new format once you get a chance?
Yeah, I mean, my list is pretty much ideal for the new format because I wasn't playing Puppet or Expulsion. So I'm pretty much already ready for the new format, but I plan on probably messing around with some of the Bishios because I think Bishios are going to be strong with the upcoming format with the changes on the list. So I might do Bishio Synchro or something of that nature, but this list is definitely very strong, I think, for the next format, just because you're going to have less issues, especially with not having to play Dragoon because cash is gone. So that'd be nice.
Before we close out, did you miss not having Puppet at all?
I did not. Puppet really puts you in a box in how you play the deck. So the issue with that is like you end up focusing so much on getting Puppet out that if you get interrupted, your plays are a lot less linear. Whereas like when my opponent attempted to interrupt me, I knew that I was always going for a Clem. I knew I was always going for a Cartesia based on what I was missing, based on obviously their interactions. So I was always going for the Branded in red, and because I was doing that, it always allowed me to have recursion during my opponent's turn. And that was the biggest thing. Again, going for Puppet, you're in a box, you're trying so hard to force out a card, and then you don't have the recursion. If you do get hand trapped, and you are able to do it during your opponent's turn, it's hard to build the recursion to be able to then start playing the turn after. Whereas like, I set up my board, my opponent interacts with me, I deal with everything that they do, and then it's just like, put everything in attack mode, swing for game. That's literally how 90% of my games were. I literally just set up my board, they couldn't deal, switch everything to attack, swing for game. And even a lot of my games going second, I just OTK'd my opponents because it was like, hand trap you to death, Branded Fusion, kill you. So yeah, definitely. I think that Puppet is unnecessary.
All right, perfect. Well, again, congrats on top 32.
Appreciate it.
Congrats on top 32, buddy. Well done.
Thank you.